Tremendous. Well, Cornelius, welcome. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Oh, great. You're nice and loud. That's great. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Hey, Chris.
You have such. You guys actually know each other well.
I know. This is a really magical moment for me. I had the privilege to work with Cornelius a little bit in phase 1 and phase 2. So this is awesome. It's good to see him, and I just can't wait to share with the world, with people watching.
Fabulous.
His strategies, yeah.
So Cornelius, you have such an impressive story. Give us a little bit of what brought you to HMR, and really just how has it gone for you? Describe it a little bit.
So I was, my initial HMR weigh-in was 386 pounds. I joined HMR because I was seeing a nutritionist, but it wasn't really working, and my doctor said, whatever you're doing is not working. Go check these people out. So I signed up for HMR, and Stephanie was my first health educator. Taught me a lot, and I since lost 200. I've gained back a little bit, but I'm keeping it at. I've lost basically 180 pounds is about right. So yeah, I've been in the HMR program for 2 or 3 years now, I think.
Yeah.
I don't even know. And it's been great. Yeah.
Just tremendous. I mean, you came, obviously you wanted to lose this weight, but you really followed through with what it took. Your commitment is just amazing to have hung in there. And you know, a lot of people say, well, losing weight's one thing, but keeping it off is something else entirely. You've brought that sustained commitment to keeping the weight off. It's just really just a phenomenal job, Cornelius. So let me ask you. You know, you've been listening. You know what our theme here is. We could be talking about a lot of things to have a successful summer, but we're really focusing on this singular strategy of if you're going into challenging situations, make sure you have the food with you. I know you have some examples of where you've done that, but just overall, why is it important to do that? Why is this an important concept to consider if you're not doing it and to put into practice to have a successful summer?
Well, it's environmental control, right? I mean, if you don't have to rely on willpower, it's a lot easier to use it. If you have good options available, I mean, so at home I have, you know, all the vegetables and fruits and whatever else and shakes and stuff I need at any time, and at work too. And then if I'm going to go somewhere and I know I'm going to be out of the house or out of the office or anywhere else, I might have stuff stashed for longer than it would take me to get hungry again, then I know I should bring something with me so that, you know, for all the reasons you said earlier, basically, you know, so when I do go, oh, I'm hungry, you know, I can say, oh, well, good thing I packed these carrots instead of, you know, maybe a corn dog won't kill me today, you know, or if you start getting too hungry, you start negotiating. If you start negotiating, it's just bad news. So
it's just so hard, isn't it? When I like to think I'm a pretty rational person, but when I get hungry, really hungry, that person goes away, and I can come up with any reason to eat whatever's in front of me and make it sound like a good reason in the moment.
Yeah, no, it's I try to keep. I think one reason I've been successful is that I've been able to keep myself out of those situations as much as possible.
Yeah, you're a real champion for this whole concept of controlling the environment. Well, let's make sure we're not ignoring people in the feed here.
Cornelius is the MVP right now. Lots of likes coming in since you've gotten on. So congratulations on that. I would say that it's definitely some of the weight loss success that you've had. It's fantastic. And we have Len joining us. Hi, Len. Thanks for joining. Len. He just says really inspiring. I mean, I think when you think of 180 pounds, just to let that sink in, it's really amazing. So a big success for you, and I'll let you keep going because I know people want to hear more about strategies.
Yeah, no problem. So, Cornelius, we had the chance to talk to you a couple of days ago, and you know, you're clearly someone who gets out a lot and does a lot of things. You are not just like locked in the basement in life socially. So you had several different examples where you just worked smarter, not harder. You want to share with our audience a few of these examples?
Sure. So it's the summer. There are a lot of barbecues. There are also a lot of weddings if you're around my age, and a lot of other situations where, you know, maybe they give you like a salad, and if you ask really nicely, they'll give you, you know, a tiny salad that doesn't actually have whatever horrible dressing they have on it, and then like maybe if you're lucky you get a piece of fish, which is not enough to keep you going through, you know, a couple hours of dancing after dinner. So for me, I'll pre-make shakes and bring them in a water bottle, and I will bring carrots. I found, like baby carrots. You can buy, you know, a 1 pound, 2 pound bag of baby carrots and bring them with. And I've found that if I just pull them out and put them on the table, nobody even I mean, at this point, nobody really cares. They sort of, most of the people that I see have figured out that I'm just going to do what I'm going to do food-wise, and, you know, and whatever. So that's been very useful in situations where I haven't been able to plan ahead far enough that I get that food before I go.
Mm-hmm.
I've found that, you know, finding the nearest grocery store to where you're going, as you guys mentioned earlier, is great. If you really need a quick fix of fruits and vegetables, 7-Eleven is fantastic.
7-Eleven, really?
7-Eleven. So I cannot tell you how many times I have been, you know, a friend of mine says, hey, let's meet for dinner, and I'm at work, and I say, okay, sure, no problem. And, you know, I don't have time to go home and make, you know, usually I would go home, I'd make like a pound of vegetables, and I eat that, and then I go out to dinner and I have some lean protein and maybe some veggies there. But if I don't have that opportunity, you know, I can pretty much always find a 7-Eleven that's not too far away, and they have bananas, apples, and oranges, all of which are ripe and at a decent price. And if I'm really hurting, they got they have hard-boiled eggs too in little 2-packs, which is the HMR suggested serving size for a lean protein of eggs. So I've had more meals than I probably would like to admit that were eggs and, I don't know, 4 bananas and an apple from 7-Eleven. That's sort of, if you can't get to a grocery store, there are some places that have better options than others.
That's great. I know, Stephanie, you liked the idea of the lean protein, the dietitian, and you liked that.
He's speaking my language right now.
You, Cornelius, I'm getting the sense that you're a volume eater, as many people are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, you're using the strategy of, you know, eating more of these foods and bringing the foods with you, our whole theme here, to really just insulate yourself. It sounds like from what happens so often to people, which is you don't do the planning, you don't have the successful options there, and the next thing you know, the night is blown, and you wake up the next day and you say, what happened?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple of other, tell us a little bit about the bike race you went on. That was really taking control.
Yeah, so I've since I got through phase 1 and I started getting into PA a lot more and more, I started biking a lot, and this year I did the Bike MS Cape Cod Getaway, which is a 150-mile 2-day bike ride.
Wow.
I cannot say enough good things about the Bike MS folks. They do a really good job of a supported ride. If you want to do a long bike ride, do them. It's also a good cause. But anyways, so they had rest stops along the way, so it was sort of every 10 to 15 miles for the first 50 to 60 miles, and then every 5 to 10 miles for the last little bit. But I brought with me, I brought 2 entrees per day, one for lunch, one for dinner, ideally. I brought shakes and oatmeal, and I brought 1 lemon bar per rest stop. So I looked at the route ahead of time and I said, okay, there are going to be 18 stops. I'll get 18 bars and bring those with. So every time I hit a rest stop, I refilled my water. I had a bar, and then they also provided oranges and bananas along with some other snacks which were less healthy than oranges and bananas.
Of course.
that was able to keep me fueled, keep me in my phase 2 box, and keep me going through 75 miles each day in high 80-degree weather. It was kind of horrible in a lot of ways, but it was really awesome, and I was able to finish time, and that was great. So I was able to just sort of sit down and go, okay, here's what I'm going to need for the race, and it wasn't really a race, but here's what I need for the ride. I know I'm staying over in like a dorm room for the night, so I want to bring an entree and a shake and a shaker bottle, and it worked great.
It's great. Such a great example of just like taking control of the situation. Let me ask you, you've mentioned bringing shakes, you mentioned the shaker bottle. Earlier in the episode, I shared an example of someone I work with who brought a blender with her on her trip with all of her friends, her week-long trip, and I shared also that we bring the blender up camping with us. Have you ever packed up a blender and brought it with you anywhere?
Yes. I've done a number of weekend trips where I'll bring my blender from work home, and I'll bring it with me on the trip, just because it's smaller and easier to move. Or I have multiple times actually, if I'm going to be away for like a week or longer, I've ordered a blender online and had it delivered to where I'm going. And same with the HMR food, which really helps out with how much luggage you have. If you are going to a place where you can get food sent, you can just order HMR food on the HMR website or Amazon or whatever, and just have it sent there directly, and then you don't have to pack it.
Great.
Which is and I've also gone somewhere and arranged with who I'm staying with ahead of time for them to buy a blender, just so that I'll have one there. So
that's smart.
It's
totally great. Totally great.
Shaker bottles are kind of crap. Real blenders are the way to go. So
yeah, you can definitely get a bigger, more filling shake. Once in a while, I'll use the 70 plus in the shaker with an equal, and it's like a thick chocolate milk. It does get the trick done in the absence of a blender, but
right. I have some things I'd want to share quickly, if that's all right, just
please.
because it's for Cornelius. Mariah is joining us. Thank
Hey,
you for
Mariah.
joining.
Excellent.
She mentioned such attention and commitment to defy the odds. A stunning example of what is possible with true grit and expert coaching. And actually, we had Greg joining us. Hi, Greg. Thanks for joining. He mentions, my big strategy is to never drive while hungry and always fill up on healthy foods before you hit the road. That's when I see all the tempting food options that are bad for me. So that makes me think of the 7-Eleven example that you mentioned, already helping out Greg.
Yeah.
So that was perfect.
Yeah, it really is. So much of this is preventing hunger, and what happens if you go too far down that road. It just, your whole list of priorities starts to change. It never ends up well on the scale.
It's so true. And we have Bob joining us, and if we can quickly add this, I'd love to, because we have you here, Cornelius, and people are wanting to hear from you. He mentions would love to hear more about how Cornelius defines his phase 2 box.
Yeah, that you kind of slipped that in there. Just describe that a bit.
So it's very similar to the transition from phase 1 to phase 2 stuff that I was given. Sort of, here's what a lean protein is, here's what a grain serving should be, shakes, entrees, benefit bars, oatmeal, sometimes a soup. Most of the food that I eat ends up being within one of those things. Oh, and fruits and vegetables, can't forget those. I eat a lot of those, so I shouldn't forget them. Like a lot. Stephanie can attest.
I'll just say that we've been in class before, and Cornelius pulls out his bag of carrots that he mentioned, and a whole bushel, is that the right word, of bananas that he'll just place there and start eating, so I can vouch for him.
I have like 5 bananas in my bag right off camera, so I figured it'd be rude to eat during this, but...
We all do it, we're fine.
Might have made a good point, actually. So anything else you'd add into that phase 2 box?
I mean, it's sort of, I've worked with my current health educator, and sort of when I find something that's not on one of those lists already, I sort of say, okay, I say, this is a thing that I'd like to eat. I think I can make it work. And just sort of try to figure out what there are a lot of different options for like veggie burgers, for example. Some of them are, high in protein and not too high in sodium or calories, and they're pretty good. And then some of them are, basically have like a gram of protein and are 300 calories and are loaded with salt. So it's sort of figuring out what my best option is within the food that I want to eat, and sort of going from there. So that's when I need to have something that's not currently in my box. That's sort of where I go with.
It's great.
With that.
It's great. So before you read any more, Cornelius, you obviously are showing such a high level of commitment, not just to lose it, but to put in the work to keep the weight off. You have so many successful strategies. I think a question that people might be asking themselves is, are you perfect?
No, God, no. Should have seen my weigh-in today. No.
Okay, so let's just get that on the table here. You have a lot of successful strategies, but you're not perfect.
No, I mean, nobody's perfect. It's more, just at any given time, making the right decision at that time. So, everybody has bad days. Everybody has their weak moments. It happens. But you can't undo it. All you can really do is make sure the next moment, the next decision, the next day is what you want it to be. And planning ahead is a huge, huge thing. It's a lot easier to say, I'm only going to eat these carrots, or I'm only going to eat healthy things tomorrow, and then say, okay, what do I need to do for that? And then so by the time tomorrow rolls around, you have all those options there already, and you just sort of have to go through what you already set out as your plan. That's a big key to success for me, is sort of make the right choice with what you got and make sure what you will have allows you to make the right choice.
So there it is. That's the theme again, having the healthy options with you. And I think you're a proponent for all the time, not just going into challenging situations.
Every situation can be challenging if it lasts long enough and you get hungry enough. It's, there's so much unhealthy food around every corner that if I leave the house for the day and I don't have a plan for what I'm going to eat, it ends up getting very dicey very quickly, and that's not great. So
Yep. So looking at that from the other, working smarter, not harder, having the foods there, and as much as successful as you've been, Cornelius, you're like everyone, where if you don't practice some of these basic important strategies, you wouldn't be as successful. It's just an endorsement of this whole additive environmental control strategy that we're talking about here. All right, I only have one other question. Did anyone else have anything to say? And then
we just have a lot of people liking and a lot of people saying great job and just how inspiring. So really just a lot of good comments coming your way, Cornelius. This is fantastic.
Feeling the love. That's great. Here's my final question for you, Cornelius, since we are talking about really having a successful summer and not feeling like you really have to pay the piper come September. Just a little more broadly, is there any advice that you would give, given your experience and your success in the program, to people who are listening about how to finish the summer strong? Anything at all?
Plan ahead, get more, always bring more food than you think you'll need, more healthy food than you think you need. Environmental control is not environmental suggestion, it's environmental control. Rule of an iron fist. Like, nobody really cares what you're eating, which I found incredibly freeing once I figured that out. Like, in the end, what you're eating is just what you're eating, and it may inspire people, it may make people not feel great about themselves, but that's their problem, not yours. So, just take control. That's
great. Take control. Very wise words to end on. Please stay with us as we wrap up the episode here, Cornelius, and thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing these different elements of your life.
Yeah, we're so happy you could be here. Really appreciate the time, Cornelius. I think you just really made this come to life that much more. Thank you.
And just to get you on record, can you join us again for another episode?
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anytime you want me on to regurgitate all the things Stephanie taught me a couple years ago, I'm happy to.
Oh my gosh, that's too sweet. Good job, Rick.
Well, listen,
if
if you liked Cornelius's interview, please either comment or click like. If you like the idea, we just sort of went out on the skinny branches here with this whole interviewing. If you liked the idea of being able to hear from people in the program, click like or leave a comment, and maybe you'll be our next interview. Wouldn't that be great? And tell us why you should be our next interview. I just have a couple of quick summary comments here. Thank you so much again for watching. Obviously, the summer is the summer. It's such a fun time of year, but you don't want the fun with the food to put you in a position where you're regretting the fun you had and dreading the work that, again, lays ahead in September. Everyone has goals with their weight, whether you want to keep losing weight or you just want to not gain weight. To achieve those goals, you've got to manage your calories. You can't get around that. You have to manage your calories. So Cornelius said it perfectly. To do that, you've got to take control. And really what we've hit on here is what we think is an underutilized strategy still of bringing the foods with you. If you're going into challenging situations, or as Cornelius said, just going through life, make sure you've taken control and have the healthy options with you so that it supports the goals that you ultimately have with your weight and with your health. So I think we can end on that note. Thank you so much again for watching us.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, these are really great comments always. I apologize I can't read them all, but we really appreciate you guys being here with us and making this, again, just a rich, rich topic.
Yeah, and if you thought this was a good episode, feel free to share it with people. We'd love to get the word out. And Cornelius' story is a great one to share. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.